government initiative on CNG is the best idea for transportation in this country, because CNG, a lot of benefit on CNG, using CNG to use CNG. Because that benefit is what I see before I started the factory to produce vehicle on CNG. Because I have started producing the CNG before the announcement. So today, everybody that tries CNG will discover that CNG is way forward for this nation. Yes, and let everybody get patient, because everybody knows that the former government sold oil, corrected the money, don't supply. This government is just supplying, they haven't get the money. So let them give them a chance. Everything will be okay. The way I see him, he wants better of this country. So I'm encouraging everybody to get patient, not to destroy our things. Destroy, you cannot benefit. There's no benefit to destroy. Our benefit is to remain and give him chance to plan for the future of this country. That's my own point.
Talking about today, the CNG. So perhaps we may be able to take a lot of the questions, we hope, that you may have about this matter. We've got Mr. Micheal Oluwagbemi here with us. He is the Executive Director, Presidential Committee on CNG Initiative. That still stands, right?
Yes, Program Director.
Program Director.
And Chief Executive, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for coming on this morning. There are several questions. First of all, I mean, my wife is not, she's usually afraid of having this gas, anything in canister, inside the bus, inside her vehicle. Yeah. There are people who still feel like that. Yeah. But give us a broad perspective. First of all, I mean, the last time we came, it's been a while, so I think you were just trying to kick off things. Yes. So what have you been doing over time about getting Nigerians equipped with this CNG?
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. I think the first thing is that when we started out last year, we recognized that naturally there was an information gap with respect to the knowledge of what compressed natural gas was for Nigerians and the benefit it could bring to the overall economy. And so what we went about doing at the first instance was to sensitize the people. We did a series of stakeholder workshops very earlier on, engagements on the ground with transport workers, transport unions, engagement with the vast majority of investors, because we needed investors to also come in to invest in the sector, because government alone cannot do everything that we need to do. For this reason, we had an investor stakeholder summit last December, and we saw the benefits of those when we started out implementation this year. On the back of that, of course, we also worked with the Federal Ministry of Finance that was actually apprised with the responsibility to acquire the assets that we were supposed to deploy this year. And to ensure that those assets came on time is required, because most of them, 99% of those assets, were coming from overseas. So that required, front-ending procurement, ensuring that expediting is done, the logistics of moving those materials from wherever they were across the world, India, China, some coming from Europe, and then coming in country, clearing them, and then making them available to the Nigerian people. So that had been a whole lot of work. Of course, setting up a team by itself was another critical aspect of the work that we had to do earlier on. But on May 29, thankfully, we were able to, 28 and 29 actually, we were able to kick off the program officially by ensuring that we launched the first refueling center in Ilorin, and then we kicked off what we call the conversion incentive program across Nigeria. Prior to that, we had been encouraging the private sector to invest specifically in conversion workshops, because we recognize that if we wanted to move Nigerians quickly to CNG, it requires us to convert the existing cars that are running on PMS, over 10 million of them in Nigeria today, to convert as much and as many of them as possible to run on both PMS and CNG side by side. Whereas we also give room for the reality that we didn't have the CNG infrastructure immediately available to all Nigerians, which is when you buy fuel is using both of those fuel, then it's flexible. So we actually set out with the goal of making sure that 100 conversion workshops were set up before the end of this year. I'm pleased to announce that today we have had over 123 of those workshops available in Nigeria, and they're setting up new ones every day. Is
it in every state yet?
It's probably in most states. I wouldn't say every state. At least the last we checked, at least 26 or 27 states have at least one conversion workshop. But we need 1,000 of them. So by us having 123, we're just scratching. Yes, we're just scratching the surface, and we're encouraging more people to do so. So the work has been intense, making sure also that as we kicked off the conversion incentive program to make conversion kits available to commercial vehicles first for free, and also to ride share.
Also comes that discount was key to public transport first, but I know. I suspect one of the key questions that people would ask about CNG when they hear this. Okay, what does it take? How much is it going to cost me to do this? And that's a lot because I mean, depending on your type of car, the size of the cylinder you want, and the kit you acquire, I think they say it ranges from between 700,000 naira to 1.8 million. I don't know if that's changed.
It's about true, and that's is a result of course, the FX as well, since we import this thing. So a lot of the programs we are doing also forward leaning is to see how we can bring some of these production domestically. Instead of us depending on bringing and importing everything. Just like we were importing fuel, we're importing kits now, right? But we want to make sure that over time, even if significantly in the next 1 year, we reduce what we're importing when it comes to converting this existing vehicle. But it's important that we convert this vehicle. It doesn't make sense for us to, relatively speaking, CNG sells for between 230 naira and 330 naira today, compared to petrol, equivalent gallon of petrol, liter of petrol, is selling for what? Almost 900 naira, and if you can find it, and in some places up to 1,200, 1,300 naira. So the savings are significant. It's cleaner, it is cheaper, it's safer, it's more reliable. When you talked about safer, it's safer because 8 times less explosive than diesel, 18 times less explosive than petrol. It's stored in a container that is bulletproof, that is not extruded, cannot leak. If it leaks, it's lighter than air. Ignition point. Yeah, it is a canister. It's not any different. So by the way, it is a canister, and it's not any different from you having your petrol tank under your vehicle. That is not bulletproof. And that is why when you get into a petrol vehicle that has an accident, 9 out of 10 times it's going to explode. We still had an explosion yesterday that killed over 18 people in Ogun State. It happens all the time. Petrol vehicles are not safe compared to CNG vehicles. A canister is at least at the minimum is bulletproof.
I want to go back to the beginning because you were talking about some of the things that had to happen for this to be on board. You know, you talked about recruitment is going on. So one question that I've heard people ask is, why isn't the CNG initiative just under the Ministry of Science and Technology? Why is it something that's standing on its own? It is a science and tech thing.
No,
if we're trying to cut down costs of governance, why don't we just do it with science and tech? Let them handle these projects. Why do we need a special initiative for it?
It has to be a special initiative because we are trying to solve a national problem. And it involves many ministries. It involves the Ministry of Finance that have to find the money. They have to do the procurement. They have to get FX because we need FX in real time to acquire these things. It involves the Ministry of Gas that has to provide the gas to make sure that we can be able to get this gas, the mother stations, the refueling stations, and all of them. NMDPRA, that is under the Ministry of Petroleum, is a major authority when it comes to regulation of the refueling stations. It involves the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment that has the National Automotive Development and Design Council that is actually overseeing the conversions. Because if you're converting this vehicle, that means you're changing them from a standard OEM specification to another specification, and they have to make sure that the standards are enforced. Also, the Standard Organization of Nigeria is under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. It involves many ministries. It involves even the Ministry of Information. They have to get the information out to the people to make sure that they do the right things. The Ministry of Steel have to work with us to make sure that I spent a good part of last week working with the Minister of Steel to make sure that we can be able to get the non-extruded steel that we need to manufacture these cylinders locally. It involves many, many ministries. And when anything involves many ministries and cuts across different agencies, it stays in the presidency for right reasons to make sure it's a national priority. Let's remember that this is not the first presidential initiative we're having. Under the President Obasanjo, we had the Presidential Initiative on Generation of Power, which was called the NIPP, ultimately becoming NDPHC. Under President Buhari, we also had another one on power, PPI, the Presidential Power Initiative. But this president is saying, look, the priority for this country is that we move Nigeria from the utilization and an addiction to petrol and diesel that is wasteful, that is putting us in a very dire economic strait, a source of fuel that's actually becoming a pain to the Nigerian people, ensuring that we are putting out $1 billion, up to $1 billion, subsidizing poverty, importing poverty, and exporting jobs. And we turn to the product that is in almost every state in Nigeria, gas, available, and yet we are wasting it. And that's what this president is saying, that we are not just going to say this is a decade of gas by word of mouth. We're actually going to commit to it as a country, and we're going to move the nation with focus from the use of petrol and diesel. I mean,
it was instructive you talking about the canisters and how safe they are, because it's not just Mark, but a lot of us are very scared of having canisters in our cars, you know, and then of course, forgive the way this sounds, the Nigerian factor where is it done properly? I don't want to hear how the thing was leaking, something happened, this, that. But I want to be able to talk about the feeling, well, I don't know, are they called fueling stations now for
refueling station. They
refueling
can,
stations.
They will probably will be in the same station that you're going to.
So what's the plan for it? Because we've seen a lot of people, especially in the public transport sector, try to roll out CNG cars, reducing cost of transport, and of course buying up a big market share. But one of the questions that they have is, where am I going to refuel from? We don't have enough of those. What's the plan? Are they going to be in the regular filling stations, or are they going to have their own fueling stations?
No, they will be in the regular filling station, and maybe some people that have the capital and the wherewithal to commit to a standalone filling station might also do the same. You find this in some countries like Iran and Egypt and even India, where there's a standalone gas filling station. But for the most part, just like kerosene, the way you have kerosene, you have diesel, and it's just another form of fuel, and it can be accommodated in existing.
Is there a timeline for this project? Because we've been hearing about it since last year.
The timeline is, as long as we have petrol vehicles in this country, we need to convert every one of them. Let me tell you this. This is fundamental to the existence of Nigeria. People don't realize how bad it had gotten. In this country, maybe let me just take your your viewers back a little bit. As at this time last year, we're spending 97% of our revenue to pay debt. And those debt, 90% of that debt was generated by fuel subsidy. You cannot sustain it. A country where in the year 2022, you budgeted 27 trillion naira, you ended up spending about 12 trillion naira half year on fuel subsidy. And then you had just spent 5 trillion on paying salary, and you had no money left to actually do capital. And almost all the money that was spent on fuel subsidy was borrowed. So you were digging yourself into a hole, subsidizing poverty, because this fuel, by the way, you bring into the country, half of it sifts through the border, and the remaining half of it gets wasted. Why? Because the vehicles you're using in Nigeria are 17, 18, 19-year-old. So people are using fuel in a non-conservative way. It's wasteful. So you are actually digging a hole, transferring debt to the next generation, borrowing 90% of the money you're using to buy this product that you don't have any business buying, when this country has gas, and we have gas everywhere. And so it's important that we understand that conversion to CNG, when people say, oh, when is it going to? No. As long as we have any petrol vehicle left in Nigeria or diesel vehicle left in Nigeria, we're going to continue to convert. We need to move this country away from the addiction to petrol and diesel. It makes no sense. You have no business. Let me tell you, by the way, when you're using a petrol vehicle, you are not using petrol. Your engines and your vehicles are using gas.
Yeah.
So what happens is that your fuel injector injects them as gas, converts them to gas. So what we're using CNG technology, you are using gas directly. You are eliminating that conversion. So what you're doing is more efficient.
I'm thinking about the man that drives the man that drives a small what is that small car? Golf.
Yeah.
That is doing drop from area 1 to Lugbe.
It's not small anymore. It's expensive.
Where is he going to get 700,000 to 1 million? It's free for him.
It's free for him under the commercial incentive.
So let's understand how that program works. Yeah. Is there are people that are exempt from that massive payment?
Yes. So what we're saying is 90% of Nigerians move on mass transit. So if you're anybody that has a vehicle, you're an elite in Nigeria. Just 10% of Nigerians move on their own personal vehicle. So if you have one, you're an elite.
Everybody by body by load.
Yes, you're an elite.
They give you loan. You're elite.
You're an elite. Exactly. I've never gotten a loan. You must have the job. Now, anyway, knowing this, the president is saying, look, if most of us are using this mass transit, let's move this mass transit. By the way, these mass transits are also the ones that use the most fuel. They also are responsible for about 80 to 85% use of all the fuel in Nigeria that is actually used, not the one that is going across the border. Why? Because when you're in your office, you come with your vehicle, you park it, and you go to work. They are going around the street, moving along. So they're continuing burning this fuel that we pay so much for. Every year, we give them about 8 million naira equivalent of free petrol, which is the subsidy we are giving to these commercial vehicles already. So what we're saying is that instead of doing that, let's give them 1 million to 1.5 million naira worth of kits. We are saving money. We're not losing money. We're not even giving them anything. Instead of giving you 8 million naira worth of petrol, we're giving you 1.5 million naira worth of kit, and so that's what we're doing. For commercial vehicles, it's free. For ride shares, because of course they use their vehicle as both private and for public mass transit use, it's 50% off.
But what about this comment I'm reading from NURTW saying that FG has not fulfilled the promise of converting 1,000 vehicles, 10,000 buses. They say that at May 29, what you did was, or what government did was just about they said they were going to be in phases of 1,000 buses, and that was not even, it didn't happen, and it's like a drop in the ocean.
So that statement was disowned by NURTW. The fellow was just, he was speaking for himself, not for...
Or the person who spoke?
Yes, it was denounced by and NURTW and us. NURTW has been a partner on this from day one.
So how many have we converted?
So far, NURTW have nominated about 100 in every state that we've initiated this project on, which will be close to about 10 states now. That will be about 1,000. Ritian have done the same thing. NATO have done the same thing. That will be about 3,000 from them. For the ride shares, we've had nominations of about 2,000. So again, this is just from the month of July when we launched. So in about 3 months, we've got nominations of about 6,000 vehicles. And we continue to do so. This week, we're going to roll out another 10,000. The fact of the matter is this. It is a technically great task to achieve this thing. It's not easy. I mean, I'm not going to come here and say, oh, overnight I can just snap my finger and we can convert all these vehicles. But we are committed to doing it because it is not a choice. I keep telling people this. It's not a choice. The nation is being bankrupted by petrol. We need to move to gas. And the reality is that why would you have a cheaper product in your country and you are the biggest reserve in Africa of that product? You're burning that product, you are the second biggest waster in the world after Russia. And that product is priced 70% cheaper than this product that you are importing. It makes no sense.
Okay, well, yes, certain things need to be done differently.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, there has to be that structure, that system for sustainability. Institutionalizing all of those things. So what are you doing with, because I mean, I know you must have read that comment some months ago from National Automotive Industry, where they say that this initiative goes against that, especially if they argued about the SKDs and things like that we're not approaching it properly. What has changed?
No, nothing has changed. What we are saying is that for this initiative to take off properly, we need to make sure that people, those investing, can be able to bring in the products that we don't make CNG manufacturing assembly plants, for example. We do not make conversion kits in Nigeria today. We don't make any steel. We are saying for those things to come into Nigeria, the government is not going to tax them. The government is not going to require duties on those things because we want to make sure that it's available to people at the lowest price. Imagine if these things are landing cost of 1.2 million and government is now putting another 40%. And government is, and at the end of the day, who is still paying the bill? Nigerian government is still the one paying the bill on the back of petrol subsidy. So it makes no sense. So we are saying government should not impose duties on these things so that they can come and we can convert and we can set ourselves free from the shackles of petrol.
What is our plan to make sure that we manufacture all those equipments or whatever is needed in this country, so we don't end up like fuel, perpetually importing everything?
Absolutely. I mean, again, this plan has everything to do with the gas industrialization strategy of this government. We are working with the Federal Ministry of Steel as well as the Federal Ministry of Petroleum, specifically as well as NNPC with this, for the CNG Industrial Park in Ajaokuta. We are also going for the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Already has 3 industrial parks that were set up, as it were, and we're exploring to make sure that CNG manufacturing companies are properly housed and they're developing and creating, manufacturing the equipment and all of the kits and things that are needed for Nigeria to ensure that we set up a retrofit industry. This thing is not overnight. The investors have to do their feasibility studies. They have to understand and know that Nigeria is focused on doing this, and Nigeria is not going to waffle and go back to the old days of subsidizing petrol and then hoping that by some miracle money will come from the skies and pay for it. They have to see that government is committed to the cost of gas transition. And once we consistently show that, investors will invest. And they're already investing. In the last 8 months, we've tracked over $75 million worth of investment in the sector. I just told you about 123 conversion centers have been set up. We've tracked about 75 new refueling stations, each costing anything from $250,000 to $1 million to set up, that have been set up. NIPCO set up 32 of them that are currently under construction, about 9 of them already completed. Greenville opened one just 3 weeks ago in Lafayette, and that is in addition to several other stations that Greenville is investing in when it comes to LCNG. We are seeing mother stations. I was in one of them that was opened in Ijebu about a month and a half ago, and probably another 2 or 3 of them that is said we are setting up mother station at a pace of 2 to 3 every month. Each mother station costs you about $10 to $20 million. LNG projects are coming on board, mini LNG projects. We have one by Areta in Ajaokuta. We have another one by Boa in Ajaokuta. We have one by Axela in Ajaokuta. We have about 2 or 3 other ones in the south of the countries. These are significant investments, but we must make those investments to get to where we want to get.
Yeah, I mean, that was the question I wanted to get to, because I just saw some article that was talking about tracking of investments in the CNG business. But someone just sent us like someone who genuinely has questions about CNG use. He said, these are some of the disadvantages of compressed natural gas that I've heard of. Limited fueling stations, you've talked a bit about that.
It's not a disadvantage, it's just a gap. It's an opportunity. Limited fueling station means you have an investment opportunity.
Higher upfront cost.
We are providing support to the commercial sector.
Limited vehicle options.
When you convert, you have all the vehicles you need.
Storage space. And he says CNG tanks are heavier than traditional fuel tanks, affecting vehicle performance.
Not really. Vehicle performance, engine performance for CNG vehicles are much more better than that of petrol vehicle. Petrol vehicle, you need to go for your maintenance every 2 months. The CNG vehicle, you don't need to go there for 6 months because you're using a clean fuel that leaves no soot. 40% less tailpipe emission, 90% less byproducts overall. So I think it's a much better vehicle. At the end of the day, you're talking about the size of the tank. Of course, you're adding a fueling option to your vehicle. So naturally, of course, it's going to take space and it's going to add weight. But when you're talking about the utilization of the vehicle in terms of efficiency, it's much more better with CNG than petrol.
Is it more flammable than petrol?
No, it's 18 times less flammable, less explosive than petrol.
Fuel efficiency. You say it has lower fuel efficiency compared to traditional gasoline.
There's no technical truth to that.
There's no truth to that. Yes. And the maintenance requirements require specialized maintenance that can be more expensive.
Not really. I mean, any of the maintenance place you go to today, once they are trained in the handling of maintenance of CNG vehicles, they will maintain your vehicle. There's really nothing. Iran moved 6 million vehicles to CNG in a space of 10 years. And today, Iran is better for it. A country, even under sanction, has to import, otherwise would have had to import petrol and couldn't find it. It's thriving despite they have all the sanctions because they moved their country to CNG. India has, in India, you cannot bring in any truck, any tanker, or any industrial or mass transit vehicle if it's not operating on CNG. It's banned. It was banned because petrol and diesel had polluted the air completely, that even the Supreme Court judges could not stand Indians suffering from bronchitis as a result of petrol and diesel. So if India has done it, China has done it, Iran has done it, why can't Nigeria do it? We have the gas. We sell the gas, by the way, to India. India buys the gas from us, and then we turn around and buy petrol from them. How does that make any sense?
I think the only thing some people cannot stand is 1.8 million to take to convert it. So
yeah, well, for the good news is that 90% of you will be able to enjoy the free conversion of mass transit.
I want that address. I know the last one he did was in Lagos, so let's bring in he's in Lagos now. Go ahead, please.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Oluwagbemi, clearly you have segregated some of us, those of us in Lagos and those of them in Abuja that can afford it, they know themselves, so they'll be able to speak to that eventually. But, I just want to ask you a question along the line of sustainability that Chimelin asked earlier. How old is this initiative? The last I checked, it was an initiative that was muted by the Yar'Adua government in 2007, and it seemed to die down until about, say, 2020, 2021, when the Buhari government started the conversation again. How far back does it go? And why has it taken us so long to get to this momentum?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I can assure you that I think Lagosians are rich enough. Coming from a state that is probably the 5th richest country if it were an African country by itself. That said, this initiative by itself, that's a presidential CNG initiative, as you know, was announced by Mr. President in October of last year. We started working almost immediately, and we've been working since then. But when you're talking about the idea that Nigerians should move to the use of CNG, it's been around. In fact, the first test, I think, was done in around 1989, 1990 by the Nigerian Gas Company then in Warri as a pilot within NNPC. And then, of course, there was something else in 2007 and in 2017. And of course, under COVID-19 ESC, there was also an attempt to convert. But this is the first time that the president and the nation has been focused on it as a way to get Nigeria off our addiction to petrol and diesel that is destroying this economy and keeping us addicted to debt that probably will bankrupt us if we don't run away from it.
Well, whether or not it will be allowed by, should I say, the powers that be, to see the light of day, I think that's another thing altogether. Because we understand from available information that there were some moves, I think by one government agency, I'm not sure which right now, that said that they were to mobilize. Yes, it was something by one of your people in the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, Mr. Uru, who says that the 36 states, all 36 states will be mobilized and sensitized on the conversion of vehicles from using petrol to using CNG? How far with that? Because you being a federal agency or even a federal initiative might take a while. But if it is possible to engage all 36 state governors, 36 state governments, it might even be easier and faster. How are the states themselves embracing this initiative?
Yes, we are working with our states. I would say that you have to understand that when we started out this initiative, just 7 states in Nigeria have any toga of CNG in terms of CNG for vehicles. Maybe 16 when you include places that where you have gas or natural gas processing, but they don't have CNG dispensing. But today we've been able to expand that footprint from our 7 states to almost 24 of our Nigerian states have some kind of CNG project ongoing as we speak. And we're engaged with we've had various engagements with the commissioners of transportation or commissioners of infrastructure or energy, as the case may be, all through the year, and we'll continue to do so. Just 2 weeks ago, we were at the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology, where we had a sit-down and a workshop with the commissioners of transportation and CEOs of mass transit agencies from the state. And states are keen in. As you know, Borno State, for example, had invested in some CNG taxis and CNG buses. The same thing, Ogun State have done the same thing. Niger State acquired about 200 of them around May 29. Ilorin in Kwara State, they are also investing significantly in CNG. Here in FCT, the FCDA themselves are investing. They rolled out some CNG buses, and additional ones are also on the way. So I think, by and large, states are beginning to recognize Akwa Ibom, Delta, Abia. These states are beginning to recognize that this is the only freebie. Oyo State, the other day, we launched about 20 buses last week in Oyo State with the Pacesetter Transport Services. They're going to be rolling this out for both intra and interstate travel at much lower cost than the current fare on diesel and petrol vehicles. At the end of the day, it's about how do we ensure the lives of our people are better? And we are going to use the product that is made in Nigeria, utilized that Nigerians can make available at the cheapest cost and the cheaper cost than petrol and diesel. And that's what it is about. And our states are keen, but they can do more. I think policies by states have to be looked at, because states ultimately are the ones that are in charge of transportation at the most local level, at the grassroots level. States have to look at policy of energy transition. How do they ensure, for example, that new vehicles that are registering on the mass transit system are required to run on bi-fuel CNG at the minimum? Because otherwise, how can you guarantee lower price for your people if you are registering taxis and buses that are running on petrol? You know the trajectory of petrol prices is up. We already know this. The prices of petrol going forward is going to be up.
Yeah, my apologies, Mr. Oluwagbemi. On the strength of that you just said, that states can do more, and that, it might even be a good idea for them, especially since some of them are already buying into it. In terms of doing more, what is your take on the states themselves investing in these conversion systems in their states? It's a long-term project, so the rewards, the benefits to the state governments might not be immediate. And there are those who would say, politically speaking, it might not be something that they want to invest in because they may not be able to get immediate returns or perhaps even score any political points from there. But how do you see that playing out? Do you see a situation or an engagement or interface where the state governments can actually think longer, beyond their terms, on behalf of their people, and invest in these systems that, as you say, are very, very expensive with long-term ROI?
Yes, it makes sense. Look, I don't even think the ROI is much of a long time. If you buy a CNG kit today, in 6 to 7 months, you will have broken even, and anything after that is profit. So if there's any state today in Nigeria that is still buying petrol vehicles, they are bankrupting their state. If there's any state government that is still registering taxis or registering IS buses or any kind of public transport system that is running on petrol, they are bankrupting their state. If you use CNG, at least bi-fuel CNG buses, you can reduce the price of transportation in your state and improve the standard of living of your people. Because your people are going to be paying lower prices, and in the long run, they'll be using that money to do something else, investing in the state and making the state better. So the economic benefit of moving to gas is obvious. The cost of doing so upfront is high. We need states to invest. We need private sector to invest side by side the federal government of Nigeria. The good thing is that our states are benefiting from higher FAC as a result of the reduction of fuel subsidies. I think it's time for them to take that money and invest it in making sure their state has natural gas, be it use of ensuring that they're investing in conversion, be it that they're investing in the buses themselves, be it that they're investing in refueling station, be it they're even investing in model stations to make sure that gas is available for their state. And the use of this gas is beyond transportation. The gas can be used for power. The gas can be used for industries. So at the end of the day, it's a net benefit for us if Nigeria begin to use the gas God has given us to grow this country instead of depending on a product that is unclean, that is truly, truly dirty, and is about to bankrupt the country economically.
Allow me to stay with the states, and I hope I'm loved for this and not hated. On the average, like how much do you think a state government would spend to invest in the CNG infrastructure, not the ones that dissipate to the various other parts of the state? On the average, how much do you think a state would require to invest in that infrastructure, or anyone to invest in that infrastructure, be it, as you said, short-term or long-term?
Any state that is putting in an average of 5 to 10 billion naira in a year, we see the result very quickly. Because, I mean, if you think about it. If you're using CNG, a conversion kit, let's take that as an example. If you're converting your entire state fleet, the vehicles of the state government, you are saving about 70% on fuel. That means that 70% that you're currently spending on petrol or diesel for the vehicles of the state now. I'm not even talking about mass transit. I'm talking about those vehicles that the governors are using, the vehicles that the commissioners are using, the vehicles that the ministries are using, is reduced. That means you're not spending that money no longer on petrol. You can use that money to go and build roads. You can use that money to buy drugs for your hospitals. Then take it further. Convert your mass transit system in the state, your taxis, your buses, all of that stuff. You're saving the state money in the long run, and the state is better for it. You're creating jobs. Technicians will have jobs. Those people who are doing the conversions are going to have jobs. Those who are refueling are going to get jobs. At the end of the day, this is a win-win for Nigeria. And I think for states who are collecting more FAC, and this is a fact, we know that states are collecting more FAC. That's money, that extra money, should be plowed into moving their states to a gas economy. That is what I think.
And you don't think that the people living in their states as well can benefit from this intervention, this initiative?
They will. I mean, like I said, jobs will be created, first and foremost.
Now I'm talking about the vehicles. I'm talking about the vehicles of private people in those states also. Do you see that also happening?
Absolutely. Even on our own end, we're already in discussions with various financial institutions, including the Credit Core Initiative of Mr. President, to begin to design programs that can allow folks, especially people that have cars, generally most of them have jobs, to be able to access credit to be able to get these conversions done. That discussion is already in advanced stages. At the right time, it will be announced. And then we will see a multitude of people like you and I who actually have vehicles be able to convert our vehicles. Because to me, it's not just the right thing to do. It's a patriotic thing to do. We don't want to bankrupt the country. Each time we are buying petrol and diesel, we are pushing our country into a financial hole. We must all understand this. This product is unpatriotic. The patriotic product is gas. That's it.
We've seen a question that we're hoping will not come. The person said,
we can't do anything about it.
Right?
He said he took his driver to his mechanic to a CNG shop in Otako.
In Otako, yes.
And to acquire the skill. And he said he's surprised they had to pay 250,000 naira. Is that what's required?
I would think education is expensive. Try ignorance.
Okay, so people should know that. So for people to understand, there's a place where you can learn CNG conversion.
No, just like education, just like going to school.
So that bill, that 250,000 naira was legit for them to.
It's for them. So again, mechanics go to school, technicians go to school, engineers go to school. That same technician that to cost him 250,000 naira to acquire these skills, will probably make that 250,000 naira fixing just 2 vehicles. And every vehicle he will fix after that 250,000 naira is profit. So I would not come here to poo-hoo the cost of education. The cost of it, like I said, I mean, I made that saying and I said it intentionally. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance.
I was going to ask questions about. He said it was free. I was like, I saw that. Wait.
But beyond this, I have to say that even as a government, we are collaborating with different institutions to provide this technical education. Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology, for example, we're collaborating with them. We're collaborating even with the NADC, Nigerian Automotive Design and Development Council. They actually have training that will be going on in Ekiti next week. and we are providing them kits to be able to use to train these students. Some of these national institutions are doing it at much more cheaper cost.
Okay.
But the truth is that we need more technicians. We need 25,000 technicians to get this going.
Okay.
So I can imagine that the government institutions, maybe they can train, 2, 3, 4, 5,000. Private people will probably train most of them, and they'll pay for it. But the truth is that for an average person that would get this training, even at this cost, after 2 to 3 vehicles, they make the money back.
All right, we need to go. Where's your next stop now?
Our next stop this week, I have a full schedule. We are expecting to activate Edo and Delta State this week. We also looking, knock on wood, that we can extend our reach to Kwara as well. Okay. In the FCT, we might be handing over some buses, if not this week, early next week. Again, the pace of this is intense. Last week we did 3 states. This week we're going to cover at least 3 to 4 states.
At least Lagos, don't ask for any more. You've had some already. So business people, hold on a bit. Go to the places that you've already launched. But there are several questions. So if you got more questions, just send them. We'll forward them and get your response as much as we can. Mr. Micheal Oluwagbemi is the Program Director and Chief Executive Officer of Presidential Committee on CNG Initiative. So we'll find out how we can get it from scratch and see how easy or challenging it is. Thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for you.